Okay, thanks everybody for coming. We really appreciate you joining us today as we talk a little bit about the pilot program that we just finished up. This pilot program was this program was a collaboration, really, between Ali Sterling Philanthropy and EPIC Toledo, and we'll tell you all about what we did, how we developed it, why folks participated, what they learned while they were there, as well as a little bit of information for you in terms of looking for board members. We just want to get started by letting people know that if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat box, and we'll have some time at the end that we've set aside to be able to answer those questions. So we want to say welcome. I'm actually going to turn it over for a minute here to Sara Swisher, who's the director of EPIC Toledo. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day over your lunch to join us. I'm Sara Swisher. I'm the director of EPIC Toledo. EPIC Toledo is the young professional program of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. We just celebrated our 9th year of programming, so we're looking forward to our big 1-0 next year. EPIC, our mission is to connect high potential emerging leaders to each other and the community, and our goals are to build the next generation of leadership within the Toledo region, and also attract and retain young professionals to the Toledo region. We do that by offering networking, leadership and professional development, and community involvement to our over 1,600 members within the Toledo region. So I would definitely say that this program and our efforts here fall underneath our community involvement area, as well as professional and leadership development for the young professionals in the community.
Thank you, Sara. And I'm Heather Gallant. I'm an advisor and the lead of our education division here at Ali Sterling Philanthropy. Our firm, Ali Sterling Philanthropy, was founded about 9 years ago by Ali Sterling. Yes, she is a real person who is the president of our company. We were founded to help nonprofits develop sustainable fundraising solutions. And what we quickly learned once we were doing a lot of fundraising work was that all organizations actually need 4 things, and that's a strong board, a really thorough strategic plan, a strong fundraising program, and of course a succession plan. That leadership piece is so critical to having a fully functioning, really well-run organization that has a lot of impact in the community. And so without an engaged and healthy board, it's very difficult for strategy to be successful. And so we've developed a variety of training series that we do on a regular basis here in Toledo as well as all over the country. We have clients and these educational programs everywhere from Maine out to Los Angeles and everything in between. But most of our business is concentrated here in Northwest Ohio with a little bit of, actually quite a bit of business in Indiana and in Southeast Michigan. So that's a little bit about our 2 organizations that came together to develop this particular training series. So a lot of people have asked us that we've been working on this. They've been asking why the Board Member Accelerator series. How did this come about? And really, the EPIC Advisory Council, Sara and a few people that she's been working with for a while, asked us. We hear from young professionals that they want to lead on nonprofit boards, and we're just not sure how to help them make that connection. And as we all know, the strength of our nonprofit community has a direct impact on the vigor of our region. So as we look at how to really revitalize in Toledo and make this a great place for all of us to live, the strength of the nonprofit community has a huge impact on that, whether we're talking about the arts or if we're talking about social services and programs, if we're talking about education. All of these nonprofits that are helping people in our community really has a direct impact on the Toledo region. And so we were really excited as a firm with these questions that they brought to us, because what we've noticed over the past several years are these 3 converging trends. We've noticed that nonprofits come to us and say, we cannot find board members. We're not finding the people that we want. We need this type of person. We can't find them. So we're looking for a pool of highly skilled and engaged board members. How do we make that happen? Another trend that we've noticed is that nonprofit leaders are saying we have lots of folks from certain generations, but we have a really hard time finding early career professionals for the board. And then at the same time, we were hearing the young professionals now come to us and say, we are eager to serve. We really want to be a part of this, but we don't feel like we're prepared for board service, or we don't feel like we know what we need to know to be a really effective board member. And so how do we do that And how do we get trained on something like that in a really, time-sensitive sort of way? So our solution was to put together a real-life hands-on training series that would prepare early career professionals to successfully govern nonprofit organizations. And we did this. We held some focus groups. We talked to lots of different people. We did research in the areas that we know when we do our research and development for new training programs. And the way that we delivered it then was that we did 6 different sessions with a peer-based learning and workshop environment. The reason that we did this is that, I think in our initial testing, what we were looking at was we know that these are very busy individuals who are early in their career, and so they were saying that it would be difficult for them to take like a half day off of work to do a workshop or a full day to do a workshop, and then be able to, have that not have an impact on their young families or on their work. And so we did 6 2-hour sessions for a total of 12 hours of instruction. The instructions really helped. We included instructions to help participants find the right board for them. And when we go through the different topics of each session in a minute, you'll see what we mean by that. We also wanted to focus on education that would prepare them to be their best on a board. So what are some of the qualities of board members that lots of nonprofits look for? And what are some skills that people need to have to be able to be a really effective board member? We also, armed them with some tools and resources that they'd be able to use right off the bat. And then we included a lot of feedback and evaluations. And in fact, those evaluations are ongoing because we approached this first time out as a pilot program. So we're going to be surveying these folks at 6 months following the end of the series and at 1 year at the end of the series, just to see how they used their skills, which pieces of the training continue to be the most useful, which things they think we might be able to trim. So there will be an ongoing evaluation cycle for this particular training program so that we make sure that we're really covering the things that are most necessary for the people that participated. So what exactly did it cover? Well, we thought about this long and hard, and we started out really at the very beginning. Initially, we said we need to tell them about what is a board, and then we said, no, maybe we need to back up even further because it might be important for them to understand what's a nonprofit organization. How is it different than a business? How is it different than working in government? Particularly for folks that are new in their careers, they might not understand the nuance between these different types of jobs and these different types of organizations or structures. And so we backed it up even more and said, okay, what's a nonprofit organization? We talked through that. We talked through what's a board, what are their roles and responsibilities, what are they expected to do legally, what's the bare minimum, and then we moved into the 3 modes of governance. So we talked about the 3 modes of governance in our eyes are fiduciary, strategic, and generative. So the fiduciary we talk about being very much the legal must-dos. It's the oversight of the organization, making sure that things are operating in a legal way. Strategic is more foresight. So, let's think about where we want to be in 3 years from now. Let's think about where we want to be in 20 years from now. So how are we strategic and how are we operating strategically? And then that 3rd mode of governance is generative, and that's really insight. So what do we need to be doing to make our mission more effective? What do we need to be doing to really move the needle on the different issues that our organization was founded to have an impact on? How can we do those things better? So we talked through how it's important for, with the participants, how it's important for boards to, absolutely do the fiduciary pieces, the legal pieces, but then, really the board should be helping the organization work through those strategic and generative pieces as well. In session 2, we covered it was more of an internal look. It was more of a personalized look. So why do I want to serve on a board? What are the reasons? Do I have the capacity right now in my life to be able to do that really effectively? What kind of board do I want to serve? Should it be a large organization, a small organization? Do I want the focus to be local, state, national, maybe a regional focus? Where's the organization in its life cycle? Do I want to work with more of a grassroots organization where I can really roll up my sleeves? Or do I want to serve on a more established board that's been around for a while and has a lot more policies and procedures in place? And so we talked through that with them so they could really identify what type of organization they would be interested in serving. And then, of course, we talked through what are the areas that you're passionate about, because as we know, the most effective board members are those where they're serving on a board where the mission is very important to them personally for some reason. So let's really figure out as a group and individually what the areas are that you'd be interested in serving. We also talked through what are some qualities of high impact organizations, which is a really interesting conversation, I think, among the group. And then we talked through some signs of a healthy board. So what are some things that ideally the board would have in place? And we emphasized very much with the individuals that participated in this program that nonprofit organizations are not inherently flawed, that nonprofit organizations are very much their own thing. And you hear a lot of times that people say, well, they just need to act more like business. And I think what was really interesting over the course of this program is that what we heard from the participants is they said, you know, there are ways that I want for my business to act more like a nonprofit. There are some things about nonprofits that I think my you know, like a few people said, my family business could really use some of this information. And so we talked about, you know, not only you know, the qualities of a high impact organization in terms of nonprofits, but also how can some of that carry over into the corporate world as well, or maybe into government. And so those were some really interesting conversations and insights that the professionals in this training series came up with. You know, when we talk about signs of a healthy board, what we emphasized with the group was if you get on a board and you find that they don't have these things, it's really your role to make sure that these things are put into place, or that you can share with the board, you know, I went through this training and here's something that they recommended as a best practice. Is this something we've ever considered? And we helped coach them on how to approach other people on the board and how to you know, not come in as a bull in a china shop and try to change everything right away, but to come in with respectfully and look at the organization for what it is and really try to figure out how they can be impactful in a way that's also respectful. So they have a list of things that are recommended for all boards to have. And we said, if you go to a board, if they don't have all of these things, don't run away screaming. Just know that when you get on the board, you might be able to help with these bylaws, or you might be able to help with a confidentiality policy or those sorts of things. Okay, in session 3, we were halfway through our 6 sessions, and we focused it on what are some of the skills that I can offer the board. And really, we focused the rest of the sessions at that point on all these different skills that a person could offer the board. We started with fundraising because we know, based on the organizations that come to our firm and that we hear out in public, this is one of the biggest things that organizations struggle with. And it's also one of the things that we find that board members are often the most hesitant about. And so we spent a whole session pretty much, I would say about 90% of this session talking about fundraising. And really the basics of fundraising, how to communicate, how to build and inspire a culture of philanthropy. They practiced, hypothetically, if they were a member of a particular board, how they would talk about that board with another person. We talked about how important it is to have donor-centered fundraising. And so we worked through a lot of the different basics of fundraising, as well as how board members can be involved in fundraising. And it's not all asking. It's not every board member doesn't need to be comfortable asking, but there are lots of ways that you can serve as an ambassador for the organization, or that you can have an impact on that bottom line and bring in some income without being the one who asks. So maybe you're doing research on an individual donor, or maybe you are going out and doing prospecting, or maybe you're being that voice for your organization out in the community. So I think people felt a lot more comfortable with fundraising after we went through this session. In session 4, we talked about the challenges facing nonprofit leadership. So all the different things that executive directors and folks who are working in nonprofits are dealing with on a daily basis. We talked through the importance of strategic planning, succession planning, setting expectations that everyone agrees on, board and staff, and also evaluation. So at the end of the year, are we looking at how the executive director has been doing? Are we looking at how we as a board have been performing? Are we looking at how well our board meetings have been run? Are we really examining how we as individual board members are performing in this context? And so we talked through the importance of those evaluations. And then we did a case study, which I think was really the biggest hit of the entire series. We did a couple case studies over the course of the series so that they could really practice the different types of things they might encounter on a board. So in this particular example, we had a hypothetical situation where we said, here's an organization, they've been functioning for this long, this particular executive director seems to have everything together, but he also seems a little frazzled sometimes, and we're trying to figure out as a board how to help him be more effective, and had them work through that situation. And then after they all reported out what they thought that they should do about a certain scenario, we came back and said, okay, now let's throw a curveball at you. This person decides to leave the organization, and now the board is responsible for figuring out what to do in this leadership void. What should they do? And so had them do a second round of discussion and problem solving, and really figure out if these kinds of situations come up, how might you react? And it was really interesting because I think each group had a different answer, which, as we all know, is very common in nonprofits, that depending on how you read the situation, you have different people have different reactions. So I think that was a really useful, and they definitely enjoyed that type of exercise as a part of that session. We're almost done with the sessions here. On session 5, we talked through the basics of nonprofit finance. So what's a balance sheet? What's an income statement? What would a budget look like? We had them actually look at some samples so that they would understand what they should be looking at as board members when they get on a board. So those are samples that they have with them that they can refer back to once they do join a board. We also talked through in this session some of the generational differences that you might encounter as a board member, or really at any point in your life, considering that we have so many different generations working in the same workplace at this point in time. It's really kind of an interesting dynamic that's different now than any other point in history. And so we talked through some of those generational differences and how you might manage some of those as a young person coming into a board, some of the assumptions people might make about you, as well as some of the assumptions that you might make about people of other generations, and how we can try to work through some of those differences. We also talked a little bit about how to manage conflicts, since we know that conflict is often one of the reasons that people leave boards. So how can we as individuals manage that a little bit better? And I think what was interesting about that is that's another area where people said, I haven't really looked at this very much, but this is something that I can use in my personal life. This is something that I can use in my corporate life, and certainly something that once I get on a nonprofit board, that's going to be really beneficial for me to know. And so then in our last session, we talked through how to be an ambassador for the nonprofit, types of advocacy that board members for nonprofits are allowed to participate in legally. And then we talked through how to present yourself to a board, because ultimately the goal of this entire series is that every one of the participants who went through the series will be on a board within the first year of being through this training. So in the next 12 months, the expectation is that all 25 of these people who have been trained will, for themselves, identify a board that really lights them on fire, a mission that they have a lot of passion around. And then we taught them how to contact those boards, how to present the information that they learned in this series, how to talk with a nonprofit and really vet them to see if it's something they're interested in doing, but also present them in the best possible way so that the nonprofit knows that they're getting a really high quality board member who took the initiative to go through a training process like this, and who's really interested in serving the mission that they've identified. We thought it might be helpful also, now that we've sort of launched these people out into the community, for all of you to understand what might be some good things to look for in board members. We hear all the time, I know this person and I think that, I don't think they have a lot going on, so I think we're just going to put them on our board. And we say, well, that's fine. It's great to have that person on your board, but there might be a better way. There might be specific things that could really help move your organization forward in a way that might be different than how you've approached board members in the past. So when we're thinking about what should we look for in board members, what we always say is you don't want just a warm body. You want somebody who's really passionate about your organization. It's also good to look at the current structure of the board and find out, are there certain areas or skills or expertise that we really need on our board. Maybe we don't have an accountant who would be able to advise us on financial matters, or maybe we need somebody with a little bit more legal expertise. So let's take a look at our board and see, do we have a marketing person? Do we have all of these different things that would really make us a stronger organization overall if we had someone advising on this at the board level? We also recommend that you have a diversity that reflects the community. So whether that's racial, ethnic, or age diversity. You know, specifically, I think this series was addressing organizations' desire to have more age diversity, but really, do we have a board that looks like our clientele? Do we have a board that is representing the interests of the people that we're serving? And so, we recommend that you have some diversity on your board to be able to have a variety of opinions, but also to tap into a variety of networks throughout the community. And then, that's that last point, that variety of networks. Are all the people on the board within the same friends group? If that's the case, you might be missing out on some additional networks within the community or different pockets of people that might be able to help this organization in a different way. So when you're looking for board members, we would recommend really examining what are you looking for, and then how do we fill those seats. So as we start thinking about cultivating board members, we want to make sure that we're setting clear expectations with people. We say one of the worst things you can do is to go to a potential board member and say, look, you don't have to come to very many meetings. Expectations are real low for you. You don't really have to do a whole lot. We're not going to ask you to do a lot. We just need some people on our board. Will you come? Well, then those folks come to board meetings, and then they say, wait a minute, you actually do need me to do a lot. You do have high expectations for me, and this isn't what I thought I signed on for. Or sometimes we hear executive directors say, we can't figure out why the board members aren't participating. Well, but at the beginning we told them that they wouldn't have to do anything. So maybe that's part of the challenge that we're running into. So one of the ways to clear this up and to really be clear up front and say, our board matters and our mission matters, and we feel like it's really important. We think that you as a potential board member would be really successful on our board because you have this particular skill set. And we want to be clear and upfront right from the beginning that this is what we're expecting of our board members. We do need for people to come to all of the meetings and share their insights. We do need for people to give an annual gift if they're serving on our board. But we also know that we're worth it, and that we want for this mission to be moved forward. And the way that that's going to happen is to have committed board members like you. So having that board member job description up front so that people are able to understand what they're signing on for is really great. We also recommend involving current board members to start doing some interviews. So if you've identified a group of people that would be good board members, maybe you ask a couple board members to sit down with some of those people and figure out why they're interested, how they found out about the organization. What are their strengths? Where are they networked? This EPIC group that just went through this training are very well networked in the community. They are networking with each other, but they also have their own personal contacts and their own friends. And so this is really a group to be watching in the community, because they are certainly a group that's on the rise. They're the leaders of our next generation. And so as you're involving current board members in those interviews, really have them ask some of these questions of, is this the best person to put on our board right now? And then the last piece that we recommend as you're cultivating board members is just make sure that you aren't scrambling right at the end to get somebody on your board. Start building up a pipeline of interested people to draw upon, so that you have at least a short list of folks who express an interest. And maybe they wouldn't be a good fit for the board this year, but maybe next year you would have a spot open up that they would be a better fit for. We also recommend on your board committees, there's a misconception that the only people who can serve on those committees of a board are board members, the governing voting board members. And in fact, you are able to have non-voting board members on those committees, which really helps you start to try people out almost before you put them onto the governing board. It helps them become more integrated into the organization. It helps them understand what's going on. And it also helps you kind of observe them ahead of time to see if they would be a good fit on your board. So just a small recommendation that you might consider doing. This is a list that we recommend you having in place for any board. And so this is something that we actually recommended for the people that participated in this program to ask about when they're trying to join a board. So things that we recommend that they ask of the organization if they have in place are things like a board member job description, which we just talked about, directors and officers insurance, which is so important for liability. We recommended that, again, if a potential board member wants to join a board and the board doesn't have directors and officers insurance. excuse us. If it doesn't have directors and officers insurance, then certainly recommend as soon as you get on the board that that's something that the organization purchases, just to protect the executive director as well as the officers on the board. Make sure that the organization has a bylaws and a code of regulations. So hopefully all of your organizations that you work for do have bylaws and codes of regulations for the board. Just asking for an annual report, a strategic plan, maybe an organizational chart to better understand what the staffing structure looks like and what the board structure looks like for that organization. Any financial statements or a budget that the organization might be comfortable sharing with potential board members could help people make a decision whether or not to join the board. And then finally, this case for support, which we recommend every organization have, which is really, why is your organization important? Why does it matter? What's the point? You do all of these great things, but a donor might ask, so what? And so with this case for support, you have some ready answers that you can share when you're talking to people out in public. Okay, so that concludes sort of our content portions. If any of this information sounds interesting to you as a nonprofit organization, I do want to mention that we have a training coming up that's really geared towards organizations. So it would be 4 4-hour training sessions at the BGSU Levis Commons campus in Perrysburg. We usually recommend that the executive director and 1 board member attend. The cost for that training is $500 per team. So it's actually a really cost-effective way to get a lot of fantastic information on how to, really elevate your board and your organization. The training dates are listed there. They're also listed at that registration link if you take a look there. And the types of things that we cover in that board series are how to equip your board to govern effectively in today's climate, how to build on your strengths, develop any areas that are a little bit weaker, and create new mindsets, behaviors, and actions on your board. Formalize and expand your governance structure. Achieve mastery in the 5 key areas of effective governance, which we've identified as purpose. So really, what's the point of a board? What's the point of board members being involved? What's their role? What are they responsible for? At this training, we will also cover education. So how do we prepare board members to serve as effectively as possible? And we find that executive directors and board members find that to be really helpful to take back to their boards. Architecture. So we talked about a little bit about how do we identify who the best people are to serve on a board, and what does our board need at this point in time. We talked through results and how to communicate those results to the outside world. And then that leadership piece, succession planning and strategy. So all of these are things that we discuss as a part of that. I'll go back here so you can see the registration link again. All of this information is contained in these 4 4-hour training sessions for the board series training that's coming up. And that's really directed more towards organizations, whereas the Board Member Accelerator training that we just finished up is focused towards individuals who want to serve on a board. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Sara now, who's going to talk through some of the opportunities that EPIC has coming up related to this type of information. So take it away, Sara.
Thanks, Heather. Then for those of you who are already serving on boards or are part of a nonprofit organization, we have our annual board fair. This is going to be the 4th year for it. It's October 5th at the Toledo Club, and this is an opportunity for nonprofits to connect with young professionals who are interested in serving on volunteer committees and ultimately board positions. We do call it a board fair, so yes, the main goal is to try to fill some board positions, but we know that sometimes you need to bring some people on at the committee level or involve them in one way or the other so that you can start to vet them and start that conversation on if a board position would work out for both of you. So this is an excellent opportunity to connect with those young professionals. Like we mentioned earlier in the webinar, we're always hearing nonprofits say they want to get in touch with the new ideas and the fresh blood. Well, this is your opportunity to connect with them. The last 3 years, we've had about 150 to 250 in attendance. So the interest is definitely there. We will have an application process for this. We usually cap out just based on space, so we can usually only take about 40 nonprofits each year. If you were part of this webinar, I will send you the application when it's ready. That will be out about the next month, and then be due back probably sometime in August, and we'll let you know in September then if you can plan on attending for the board fair. A couple things just to keep in mind for the board fair. It's similar to a job fair, so each organization has their own table. They can bring any material that they think represents you and shows part of their mission and the work. Some people bring different photo displays, but also having board descriptions there is a great tool. And any other information, brochures, one-pagers that you can hand out to those who are interested, because the young professionals there, they're probably looking for two things. One is a mission that they feel passionate about, and the other would be to work with people that they want to work with, right? Mm-hmm. So going there and having the young professionals get to connect with you, the ED of the nonprofit, or board members, it's a great opportunity to meet some people that they say, I really want to work with these people, and they're really passionate about this mission. So I can get behind this too, and I enjoy spending the extra time that I have working with these people and supporting this nonprofit. So do remember when you are picking who's going to be representing your organization at the board fair, make sure it is those who their passion for it is contagious. I would say that's what's really going to help to maybe get you noticed. Maybe get some people over there and start to make those connections. And then I know we mentioned the Board Member Accelerator series. We will be offering that again in the fall, and that session is going to start in September. And again, that is for young professionals in the community who are looking for more training on board member responsibilities, commitments, everything that Heather talked about.
Yeah, so those are two really great opportunities. If you're an organization looking for board members, I can't recommend the board fair enough. It's just a great opportunity for you to attract people to your organization. And at the same token, if you aren't a part of a nonprofit organization and you're interested in participating in on a board, I think it's just such a wonderful opportunity to walk around and see what great work the different nonprofits in our area are doing, because we really have some really outstanding nonprofits and some aspiring wonderful nonprofits that have fantastic missions and are really well on their way to build up the impact that they're having on our community. And so it's a great opportunity to meet both of those, really a whole variety of different groups that are there. And as Sara said, that Board Member Accelerator series is going to be another round of what we just completed, and another group of people that'll be ready to serve on boards with a little bit of training.
Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at the Board Member Accelerator series and wondering if that is going to be a good program for someone you know or yourself, I can tell you that this last class had participants in it of varying degrees of experience. So we had those who were already serving on boards and had been for a while, and they would probably call their experience more of a baptism by fire. And then we had those who were a little greener, and honestly the class was perfect for both sides. It really elevated those who had already started to serve on boards and really gave them an opportunity to go into the boards that they're serving on and say, hey, I think we really need to put together this binder for future board members. We need to get the description together. We really need to make sure that we're looking ahead and getting our strategic planning done. And then those who are greener, it gives them the tools to be able to go in and talk to a nonprofit chair or ED about getting involved with the organization and really almost selling themselves, as a great board member and why they want to be involved, and make sure that they went down that list of things to see, is this an organization that I want to be involved in? So it's really great for all levels.
Okay, I see we have a couple questions that people have typed into the chat box over there on the side of the screen. So let me take a look. It looks like Brittany is asking, are you going to share these slides? They're great. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, actually we're recording this session, so we'll share both the slides as well as a video of this entire session, so you can have the audio as well. And it looks like Angeline also asked, is there a cost for the class? So just to go over the 3 different programs that we talked about today, the Board Member Accelerator series does have a cost associated with it. I think we're still determining what that cost is going to be in the fall. For the initial pilot program of it, we actually charged $150 per participant. So
and that included all materials, breakfast at every class. It covered the parking, It also gave each participant a certificate that, hopefully they put up in their office and write about, a badge to go on their LinkedIn page, as well as a letter to a community leader or supervisor of their choosing to send to say, hey, I completed all this and I am ready to go.
Yeah, and remind me, Sarah, do people have to be EPIC members to be able to participate in the Board Member Accelerator?
We actually have two different options that will be available. With being a pilot, we were still kind of exploring that. And of course, we would love whoever is a part of this program to, get involved with EPIC and our other opportunities to serve the community and get connected. So there will be an opportunity, one for EPIC members and the other one for non-members, so we can, work to get you involved as well.
Great. Okay. So that was the Board Member Accelerator, which is the one that it was really focused on individuals. I also mentioned the board series, which is coming up, which is geared more towards organizations, and that's $500 per organization. And then finally, the board fair does not have a fee associated, does it?
No,
okay.
There's no cost to attend as a nonprofit, and there's no cost to attend as an attendee. We do have a selection process for nonprofits to attend, though, based on space, and we pick those. We try to make sure that there's a variety of different missions there and with what's represented.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sarah. So I see there's another question here from Brittany, which is, what are the 4 things organizations need that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation? Oh, so the 4 things that Ali Sterling Philanthropy, as our firm, what our philosophy is, the 4 things that organizations really need are a strong board, a thorough strategic plan, a strong fundraising program, and then a leadership succession plan. And then that's actually the end of the questions that we have. If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to type them in the next couple seconds. I do want to share our contact information for Sarah and for me. There we are. I'm Heather Gallant at Ali Sterling. My email address is heather@alisterling.com. And Sarah's email address there is sarah.swisher@toledochamber.com. Thank you all so much for participating today. We really appreciate your time and your interest, that this is something that you are compelled to participate in and to join. We are really committed to making sure that we have the best community possible. I know Toledo's appeared on a couple lists recently of being a really great community to live in, and we know that nonprofit organizations, as well as corporations, as well as our local government, are all really important to making sure that we have a vibrant community. And we're really thrilled to be able to be a part of that. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.